Okay, Brian, it's 10 o'clock.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the latest of our The Power of Women series. My name is Brian Stevens, and it's really a distinct honor and a privilege for me to serve this region as the president and CEO of the Hampton Roads Chamber. You know, we first started the Power of Women series a few years ago to help empower women to move up the proverbial business ladder, move them into more C-suite jobs, move them into higher positions within their organizations. That focus has shifted a little over the last 11 months in this COVID environment that we're working in now. When the pandemic hit, we became laser focused on economic recovery, making sure that businesses survived the pandemic, business resiliency, and quite frankly, getting people back to work, because so many people have lost their jobs during this pandemic. Well, now that we're seeing a little light at the end of the tunnel, and we are, the vaccines are coming and we see a light at the end of the tunnel, we want to do more than just that. We want to help get workers back to work, especially women. And we want to ensure that we address a work-life balance, because we believe that a lot of employees, especially women, have been struggling through the pandemic with their work-life balance. Schools are just starting to reopen, but many parents have spent the last 11 months homeschooling their children, going through the virtual classes, and I know it's been very challenging. They have managed to figure it out, though. They've managed to multiple tasks and understanding the distance learning, running a household, and continuing to work, sometimes in the workspace, sometimes working from home, but they've kept it all together. But at what cost? The Hampton Roads Chamber is dedicated to setting the conditions for businesses to succeed. And right now that means helping employees succeed, and again, addressing their work-life balance. That is why we've invited Suzanne Fullwood of Optima Health to be our keynote speaker today to address the unique need for self-care. I now turn the program over to the Hampton Roads Chamber Senior Vice President for Programs and Communications, and the person responsible for running the Power of Women series for us, Priscilla Monte. Over to you.
Thank you, Brian, for your leadership and for your support in championing the needs of working women in our community. I must first thank our sponsors. It's through their generosity that we can offer these valuable programs at no cost to our members. Our presenting sponsor is Cox Communications. Thank you, J.D. Myers, for your support of women in the business community, and Neka Chiazor at Cox for your support and leadership as one of the most powerful women I know. Our series gold sponsor is Optima Health and Centera Healthcare. Thank you, John DeGrotolo, for providing today's amazing speaker from your Employee Assistance Program team. Chesapeake Regional Healthcare is also a series gold sponsor. Thank you, Reese Jackson and your team, for all you do for the Chamber and the community, and especially your dedication to women's healthcare. Our series silver sponsor is a collaborative effort of Centura College, the Aviation Institute of Maintenance, and Tidewater Tech. Thank you for helping displaced workers find training for new jobs. ADP is our series bronze sponsor. Thank you to Mike Donahue. And the Port of Virginia is also a series bronze sponsor. Thank you to Stephen Edwards. And it is now my honor to introduce our presenting sponsor. J.D. Myers II is the Senior Vice President and Region Manager for Cox Communications. J.D.?
You know, that awkward moment when you forget to take yourself off mute? I just had that moment. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, Priscilla. Thank you, Brian. And good morning to all of you. I'm thrilled to be here with all of you today to celebrate and acknowledge not only the power of women, but the critical role they play in our lives, at home, at work, and in our communities. Now, I'm no stranger to the power of women. Between my wife and the 3 adult daughters that I have, I am a very proud girl dad. Hashtag Girl Dads Rock, just in case you didn't know. I was also raised by 2 great parents and a strong mother that held our family together when my father served active duty in the Army and did 2 tours in combat during the Vietnam War. Also to the uber, and I mean uber talented women. If you don't know what that word means, I suggest you Google uber talented. It's uber talented women that keep me in line and on my toes every day at work. I am blessed to have an executive leadership team of 12 vice presidents that report to me, where almost 60% of them, and I mean 60% of them, are women. So let me explain. I either hired or promoted most of them into these roles. And you're talking about vice presidents who represent also some of the most technical fields in our company. A vice president of engineering, a vice president of construction, vice president of field operations, a vice president of market operations, a public and government affairs vice president, shout out to NECA out there, a vice president of sales, and a vice president of human resources, just to name a few of the uber talented women executives that I'm so proud to be a team of. I strive to be an ally and advocate for all of them and for all women too. But thanks to my role at Cox, I get to see firsthand inclusion, equity, and diversity as a focus that goes beyond the color of one's skin or their race. And today truly embraces, celebrates the unique talents and perspectives of people and what makes us stronger. So as we embark on Women History Month, it's an opportunity to reflect on the many contributions of women to history, culture, and society. But it's also an opportunity to empower and inspire women today. At Cox, we are truly committed to building a future. When I mean building a future, it's building a better future for the next generation. Thus embracing and fostering an environment that builds on the unique talents that come from people in a variety of backgrounds and perspectives is one way that we're achieving that goal. Just to give you a little history, we began our journey with Cox over 120 years ago. And today, Cox is led by the great-grandson, our founder, of James M. Cox. So you could say that setting up for future generations for success is hardwired in our DNA. Although we have employees all over the world, we haven't lost sight of our local roots and the need to maintain connected to the communities that we serve. We are also, for many of you didn't know, we're a family-owned business. And that sense of connection that comes from being a family business has never left us. That's why you see our employees here in Hampton Roads on various community boards, volunteering at local events, supporting nonprofits, and even finding creative ways to give back even in the middle of this pandemic. We are making our mark in supporting communities in areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion, empowering people to have a voice, developing the workforce pipeline, and making sustainable and environmentally conscious decisions. All of these things play an important role in building a better future. As you do, but none of you know, none of you forget that this work doesn't come without other things. This work requires you to make sure that you do things that also take care of yourself, prioritizing your emotional self-care and your work-life balance, particularly amidst a pandemic like we're in today. To take us deeper into this timely topic, I'm delighted to introduce today's keynote speaker. Suzanne Braxton Fullwood has been in the health insurance profession for nearly 33 years. She joined Optima Health in 2007. She has been in her current position as the EAP Client Executive since June of 2017. In her current role, Fullwood manages 149 clients where she passionately promotes the benefits of using Optima Health EAP program. She has held numerous volunteer leadership positions, including serving as a member of the board of directors for the Greater Richmond Chamber of Commerce, vice chair for the Realtors Helping Realtors program with the Richmond Association of Realtors. And she was a member of the committee of the Virginia Funeral Directors Association. Ladies and gentlemen, join me as I present to you Ms. Suzanne Braxton Fullwood. Thank you.
Thank you, JD. Such a warm welcome. I appreciate that. Again, my name is Suzanne Fullwood, and as JD stated, I am a client executive at Optima Health for the EAP program. But what I'd like to do today is to talk to you about some self-emotional care. You know, throughout life, we're all going to go through something. If it's not one thing, it's another. But the thing is that how you rebound from it. How do you actually pull yourself together to live life day to day? So what we're going to do is we're going to go through these 12 bullet points. But before I get started, I want to share my personal testimony with you. I grew up right here in Hampton. I had moved to Richmond and I lived up there for almost 27 years. My mother was an English professor at Thomas Nelson. My mother was very bougie, she was very posh, and she would articulate all the endings on her words at all times. You could imagine what it was like growing up for me. But unfortunately, in 2013, my mother suffered a massive stroke, which left her bedridden, stroke, dementia, feet to the whole 9 yards. My father was 86 at the time. He was taking care of her at home. I was coming home as much as I could, but I couldn't get home as often as I needed to be. So one day my father said to me, he said, Puddin', because that's what he called me. He said, Puddin', they're building a house on the next street over. I was already going through a divorce, so what a perfect time for me to go ahead and move. 9 days after I closed on this house, we found out that my father had a brain tumor. My father decided to have the surgery, and guess what happened? As a result of the surgery, he too had a stroke. So I had both parents downstairs in the dining room, dementia, feeding tube, stroke, the whole 9 yards. My mother passed away September 5th of 2016. My father passed away 47 days later. Oh, by the way, did I mention that I was the only child? So I had to go through that. Then I got remarried in 2018, and my husband, a wonderful man that he has some health issues. And in fact, he's about to have his 7th knee replacement on the 23rd of this month. I just had surgery 3 weeks ago. I'm telling you all of this because I want you to know that throughout your lifetime, things are going to happen. And like my pastor always says, if you haven't experienced anything, keep on living because your time is coming. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with number 1. Allow yourself to feel. Now, this one is crucial. A lot of times what we do as females and men too is we put Band-Aids on top of things. We'll say, oh, it'll be okay. Don't worry about it. I'll get to it later. But you know, the thing is that you have to allow yourself to feel. If you feel like crying, go ahead and cry. If you feel like taking that whoo-saw moment to yourself, take that moment. If you feel as though you need to scream, you might want to go outside with that, but you have to allow yourself to feel, because what happens is one emotion coupled with another one, coupled with another one, causes depression. Also, if you don't allow yourself to feel, health concerns can happen. You can easily have a heart attack or a stroke. So allow yourself to feel in the way that you need to do it. All right, number 2. Pay attention to physical sensations. Now, your body is like a well-oiled machine. And your body, if there's a pain or something going on, that's an indicator that you need to pay attention to it. But again, we as females, what do? We go, and males too, we go and we put a Band-Aid on it and say, oh, I'm not going to worry about it right now. I won't get it checked. I'll get to the doctor when I can. But you need to pay attention to fatigue, tension, shallow breathing, especially now with COVID going on. You need to pay attention to those signs and symptoms because you could be COVID positive. But again, pay attention to yourself, go to the doctor. And what we do is we finally go to the doctor, and then by the time we get there, something is a stage 4 or something that can't be readily fixed with a medication. So pay attention to everything that your body is telling you. All right, number 3. Reflect on feelings. Now, back in the day, as I call it, I used to write in a journal every night, and I did it, I know, at least for 7 years. So then what I would do is I would go like pick today, and I would go back into my journals and I would look and see what I was doing, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Prayerfully, you see some growth. All right, because if we're not growing, we're being stagnant. And so again, a journal or a meditation allows you to just take some time to yourself, look back at what you've been doing, also set goals for yourself. I have a whiteboard over here that I just got the other day. And for me, I like to be able to check things off on my whiteboard to make me feel as though I've accomplished things. But again, reflect on your feelings, negative and the positive, because the negative ones are out there and then we learn from those things not to do it again. And the positive are the ones that we expound on to keep moving forward. All right, number 4, express yourself creatively. Now, this one I like, and I know my husband gets mad at me in the morning time, but one of my ways of creating or expressing myself is I love to sing in the shower. I sing soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, and I bring it all together like the Hallelujah Choir. But that's my way of expressing myself. Something else that I do creatively is I create flowers like the one that I have on here. When my parents went in the hospital, to me, it looked as though they were on every machine that I could possibly see. So in order to take my mind away from what I was seeing, I would go to the store, I would buy these flowers, disassemble them, and recreate. So this is one that I did just for today. But allow yourself to be creative. Think about things outside of the box that you may want to do. You probably sit back and you see television, you watch television, you'll say, you know what, I've always wanted to go hiking. I've always wanted to go canoeing. Do those things. What are you waiting on? Try being creative. All right, number 5. Limit exposure to negative messages. Now, this one is crucial. How many people do you know are negative all the time? And that's A with 5 L's. You'll say good morning to them in the morning with your smiley face, and you get, no, it's okay. So, you have to eliminate exposure to negative messages, because I consider us all to be like sponges. Every day we soak in, not only the things that are going on with us, but the things that are going on with other people also. At the end of the day, you try to wring it out to get out some of the negativity. But what happens, like with a sponge, there's residual in there that kind of bubbles up to the top the next time. Watch the negative exposure. I know for myself, if I feel as though people that I call triggers, if I know that they're coming with something negative, instead of going back and forth with them, I just politely excuse myself, because I know what my triggers are. Social media, if anybody puts anything negative on my page, they're automatically deleted. And then the people around you, surround yourself with people that are happy and positive, people that have the same inspiration and the same goals that you have. I always tell people, don't watch the news at night. Because what happens is it has a tendency to seep into your spirit, and you're sleeping or you're trying to rest. Your body is at rest, but your mind is constantly churning. So limit your exposure to negative messages and also people. Now, you know what? That could mean your family members, and that could also mean your coworkers. Sometimes you have to love people from afar. Number 6. Work on replacing your negative messages with more positive ones. I promise you, anything that is going on negative in your life, there is a positive in it. The only thing is that you have to find it. When both of my parents passed away, within 47 days of each other, to me, that was the most horrific experience I could ever have in life. But you know what? I had to dig down deep and find a positive in it. The thing is that they had been married for almost 60 years. I knew that she couldn't live without him. He couldn't live without her. Their relationship was like that movie called The Notebook. So again, anything that's negative, look for a positive. Now I know you're probably saying, Suzanne, really? Well, yes, really. There's a positive in it. Any negative that happens in your life, that's not the purpose. Okay, the purpose is to find the profession in it, or to find the happiness in it. Again, you learn from things that are negative. Believe me, you will. All right, number 7. Now, this is the part when I'm standing in front of people and I do a presentation, and I'm going to ask you very quickly, how many people out there have hobbies? How many people can yell out their hobbies in less than 30 seconds? All right. Usually, if you have a hobby, it's something that you could just readily say, this is what I like to do. This is what I enjoy doing. Again, I have several things that I consider to be hobbies. One is creating jewelry. 2, I like to shop, if you want to call that a hobby or not. But everybody needs that thing that brings you joy, sometimes by yourself. It's just your way of getting away and saying, you know what, this is what I enjoy doing. This is my peace and quiet. For me, I put on gospel music and I'll destroy a flower and rebuild it. But everybody needs some form of recreation or some type of hobby, something to bring joy to yourself. All right, number 8, create emotional boundaries. Now, this one is critical. How many times are you going to let that person talk to you any kind of way? How many times are you going to let that person treat you any kind of way? You have to set emotional boundaries of how much you are willing to accept. because people will constantly try to run over you. And the only way I say that a person can ride your back is if you bend over and you allow them to do it. No one on this screen can hurt me. You know why? Not that I have my boundaries set up so high, but I recognize things. I recognize things in people. I recognize personalities that may not necessarily match with mine. So again, you have to create the boundaries to protect yourself, because if you don't protect yourself, who's going to protect you? Create emotional boundaries. How much are you willing to accept? All right, number 9. Now, this one gets me teared up a lot. Begin a gratitude practice. Be grateful. Be grateful for everything that you have, but also be grateful for the things that you don't have. Because the things that you have are those things that are meant to be. Those are what I call blessings and the beauty of life. The things that you don't have, it could be that you just aren't prepared for them just yet. Those things will come in time when you're ready for them. Have you ever wished or prayed for something and then you got it and then all of a sudden it went away, or things they didn't go the way that you wanted them to go? Because again, everything comes in time, but not in your time necessarily. So be grateful. Please be grateful for everything that you have. That's relationships, material things, everything. Just be grateful. Number 10, resolve emotional wounds. Now, I see this one a lot in EAP. If someone has done something to you 5 or 10 years ago, and you are still holding on to that grudge, and you see that person later on in life, and they're going on with their life, and they're happy, and they're smiling, and you just happen to catch a view of them, and you see them happy, and your eyebrows go up like the McDonald's arches, like you're surprised. Repeat this after me, and I can't hear you, but please say it. You have to let things go. You have to let those emotional wounds go. And I know it's easier said than done, but a lot of times what happens is it goes back to number 1, allowing yourself to feel. Feel your way through that wound. Take the time that you need, whether it's grieving over a loved one, a relationship, or something like that. Take the time to allow yourself to feel, but eventually you have to release it. Eventually you have to let go. And then another thing that you really should do is forgive that person. Okay, forgiveness to me is the greatest thing to help you to heal. Forgive them, right or wrong. Forgive so that you can move on. All right, number 11. Cultivate emotional intelligence. Now, I know I smile a lot, but you would never believe that some years ago I used to suffer with anger management. It didn't take long. It didn't take long for somebody to set me off or for me to start using my mouth in ways that wasn't pleasant or pleasing. So I have recognized what my triggers are. I know that if I go certain places and if certain people are there, I recognize them as a trigger. Learn to deal with your emotional intelligence. Learn to recognize, respect, and most of all, manage your emotions. You cannot react to everything that somebody says to you. You know, somebody may be going through something personal and they really don't know how to manage it. They don't know how to manage their feelings. And then here you come, happy-go-lucky, and you walk right into that line of fire and you catch it. The first thing to do, and I always tell people, is to show somebody love. I tell people I love them all the time because you don't know when the last time they've heard those 3 words. Pre-COVID, I'm a hugger. I hug everybody. If somebody were going through something, it would be nothing for me at an event to run around the table and give that person a hug and just hold them and embrace them. Again, you don't know what they're going through. And then one thing also, when people are talking to you, try not to be a clinician. All right, if they have an EAP at their job, encourage them to seek help there. And that goes into number 12. Ask for help through personal support. Now, if your job does have an EAP and you have XYZ number of visits, we encourage you all to use those visits. Again, don't try to be a clinician for everybody. Always try to be your brother's keeper. A lot of times I tell people, you know, you may be going through something, and if you go and talk to a family member will could possibly tell you, oh, Suzanne, it'll be okay. Don't worry about it. It'll be okay in time. Whereas a clinician will tell you, no, your behavior is a little bit erratic. Maybe we need to come in and have you to come in and talk to us about some of the things that are going on. But again, we all go through something. Everybody is going to go through something in their lifetime, whether you have an EAP, or you can have a support group, or you can have professional counseling. We strongly encourage you all to use those services. I know that there's a stigma out there about talking to a clinician or talking to a counselor, but please put all of that aside. Sometimes you just need a third-party person to talk to you and share some ideas. So again, these are some of the bullet points that we use at Optima for some of our clients as far as self-emotional care. Again, self-emotional care is critical. You have to take care of yourself first before you can take care of anyone else. You are no good to anyone else if that person is going through something and if you're going through something that's 10 times worse. So please reflect on these. If Priscilla needs a copy of it, I'm more than happy to send it to her. But again, allow yourself to feel. Pay attention to your body. Reflect on your feelings. Express yourself creatively. Limit exposure to negative messages. Work on replacing those negative messages that you may hear on a constant basis. Engage in activities. Key thing, create emotional boundaries. Protect yourself. Protect yourself. Be grateful for everything that you have and those things that you don't have yet. Resolve emotional wounds. Don't carry around wounds that have scabs on them. Let them go. Let them heal. Allow yourself, free yourself. Cultivate emotional intelligence. You know you better than anyone else. Be able to respect and manage your emotions. And last but not least, if you have an EAP, please use it. So that's my spiel on emotional care.
So now we want to get the discussion going. So put your question in Q&A or in chat and we'll open your microphone. But, you know, I want to start off by just saying I am expressing number 9. I am so grateful to have Suzanne as a dear friend of mine. And she does give the world's best hugs. So if you don't have a Suzanne in your life, you need to find that person. You need to find that person in your workplace, in your neighborhood, in your kids play group, whatever, that's there for you, that you can say, hey, I'm having a day. Can you help me talk through this? Because that's how we're all going to get through this together. Suzanne, you mentioned limiting exposure to negative messages. And I think that's probably the biggest one that everyone is dealing with right now. Just, fortunately, we made it through the election cycle and there was a lot of negative energy coming out of that. And so, now, what would you mentioned not watching the news before you go to sleep, and you also mentioned knowing what your triggers are. As everybody has questions, Suzanne has asked us not to get clinical because we can't do that in this sort of a forum, but, how do I figure out what my triggers are so that I know that, that's gonna make me not feel happy?
When it happens over and over, Priscilla, if you constantly run into people that have what I call, likeness, okay, you know what sets you off. Again, you know yourself better than anyone else. Things that bother me, people that I see that are mistreating people, in particular, elderly people. I have to stay away unless it's something that I can do. If there is something going on, a situation, well, again, I think just mistreatment. If there's someone that's putting on airs, those are triggers for me. Okay, if I feel as though you're not being transparent or that you're not just being yourself, those are triggers for me. But I can't really think of any others right now. But again, you know yourself. If you approach a situation and you know that it's going to upset you, that's a trigger. As far as the social media, stop reading it. If you see things on social media that just kind of wear you down, turn it off. You have to protect yourself at all cost. Watching the news during the election, I had to turn it off. It just got to be too much because it was on every time I turned on the television. It was on every time I turned on the news. It just got to be too much. So in order for me to protect my spirit, I had to shut it off and just move on to something else.
Suzanne, an anonymous attendee has an interesting question. We often can ask the ones from anonymous, but this is a good one. Any advice on how to start a conversation with someone who personally doesn't like you?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure I've had that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you're walking into a negative environment and you know that person doesn't like you. And any advice on how how to get yourself ready for that.
Well, you could, the thing for me, I'll use myself as an example. My stripes don't change. I'm the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And if I knew that somebody didn't like me, but I was forced to have to communicate with them, I would just go up, introduce myself. Hey, how are you doing? Is everything okay? Everything good? My famous saying, when people ask me how I'm doing, always 99% of the time, I always say all is well with my soul, and then move on. Do not try to engage a conversation with someone who doesn't like you, because eventually they're going to say something that you're not going to like, or that's not going to jive right with you. And then here you go with a confrontation. So again, introduce yourself, just ask how they're doing. You don't even, during COVID, you don't have to touch them. You don't have to shake, and you don't have to give a hug, but at least acknowledge, hey, you know what? I see you here. I'm not going to act the same way that you act. I'm going to acknowledge you, but then I'm going to move on and keep your distance. Don't go back, okay? Just don't go back, but keep your distance.
Molly Stewart has a good question. And if you can open Molly's microphone so she can ask it. One of the big things that everybody is talking about in the business world now is emotional intelligence. And I think it's wonderful that this has become a business practice and a best practice, and to look at people's emotional intelligence. So Molly, if your microphone is open, you can go ahead and ask Suzanne your question. You there, Molly? Okay, we don't seem to be able to hear Molly, but she's asking, any suggestions when you know there is a trigger that you cannot avoid? How can I cultivate my emotional intelligence to reduce my response to that trigger?
You have to control your emotions. Sometimes you just have to put what you don't like and what isn't pleasing in your sight aside and control your emotions until you're able to just get it together. Again, if you are in the presence of a lot of people, knowing that you never know who's watching you, okay, but again, you have to be the bigger person. So again, just try to manage your emotions just for that short amount of time, for that short stint of time, and just try to manage them, do the best that you can, and keep it moving. My thing is that you don't want to be around or stand around people that are negative, or people that have animosity, or they just don't like you. But again, you be the bigger person. You acknowledge, you take the elephant out of the room and just go ahead, speak to the person, and then move on. Again, just try to manage your emotions. And I mean, you have to do that on a daily basis. Everybody has to manage your emotions one time or another. You may get a call from a client or a customer who is just irate. For me, I have to spin my hat, manage my emotions, and talk through that call. Because again, it may be that they're not taking it out on you. They're upset about something. But again, you just happen to be in that line of fire. So just you manage your emotions. You take control of you. You can't control the other person. You control you.
Jamie Mitchell offers this advice. She's also, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if Jamie is a man or a female, male or female. I've also heard that it recommended that you need to counterbalance news, media, etc., with something positive, such as listening to music, taking a walk. Jamie Mitchell says they think that is great advice. Michelle Partridge Lane, who is our vice chair for leadership programs, says there's a great app called 5-Minute Journal that really helps with starting and staying focused with a gratitude practice. We have another question from an anonymous attendee. How do you deal with a narcissistic friend?
Okay, can you give me a little bit more?
I don't know. How do you deal with a narcissistic friend or coworker? That may get into too much clinical. If we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
okay,
kind of stepping up.
That's just a little bit on clinical.
That you would need to discuss.
Suzanne has been saying, you can control your reaction to people. You can't control other people. And so if your friend is narcissistic, you know that going in. And so just prepare yourself before the conversation, because people don't change.
Yeah.
We have a few here. Jen Marcus has a question. And can we try and open Jen's microphone?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Here we go.
So I typed in the Q&A a question about how did Suzanne get so smart and learn all of this stuff? And I specifically was wondering, was it triggered after the death of your parents that you started to, go to counseling? I've listened to a lot of podcasts where people talk about the benefits of counseling and that almost everybody, like you said, everybody's got their stuff, but most of us don't ever go until there's sort of a significant triggering event.
Right. I can tell you, and I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't use EAP. My source was prayer. That's what I relied on throughout the whole time. And yes, after the death of my parents, it kind of just elevated me to a new level. Because at that time, and I'm just being honest with you, I felt like I was then an orphan. Okay, because both parents had transitioned. I have my family, I can probably count them all on one hand. My oldest aunt, who's 94, is just calling me a few minutes ago. But it did, it kicked me into another realm of spirituality. And so I would just go into deep intercessory prayer. I thought about EAP, and my manager at the time just kind of reminded me as an informal, but I just felt as though I needed that time by myself to kind of work through things on my own. Now, there could have been times that I could have called EAP as a voluntary. And like, again, I thought about it, but at that time, going through the emotions and everything that I went through, that's where I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about trying to help others. And I always tell people that your testimony, share it with others. Because when people hear or see that you go through something, it helps them to open up and share with you. And I can share with you the things that I've been through, the things that I've experienced. But yes, my past life experiences, I won't say that they've made me smart. They've just made me wise. And I have a lot of wisdom. And working in EAP, I'm doing a lot of events and working with my clients. It's about 149 or 150 of them. You have to have a certain demeanor. You have to be the person that's going to listen, be attentive, not be judgmental, because people share things with me all the time in confidentiality, and I never share anything. But a lot of times people just want that kindred spirit where they feel as though they can communicate and share. And I'll do a lot of listening. Now, I do a little talking too, but I stay away from the clinical side. But yeah, your past experiences will kick you into a whole new realm. And again, it's not so much that I feel as though I'm smarter, but I'm wiser.
And you are wise, Suzanne. You really are. Holly Rice has a question. And if you could open Holly's microphone. Holly recently read an article on toxic positivity and wants to share some thoughts on that. So hi, Holly.
Hi, how are you all today? Can you hear me?
Good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. So I just recently read a really interesting article on toxic positivity and sort of especially how women sometimes feel that their role is to be very positive and smiling kind of 24/7, and kind of the idea of like shoving everything down deep so that you continue to be like your usual cheery kind of self if that's your personality type. This isn't really a question, but I just think a lot of these steps are really helpful, especially dealing with the emotions so that you can move on and get back to feeling positive in a more natural state. But I just kind of wanted to know your thoughts and if you've kind of heard that term toxic positivity kind of circulating around recently.
No, that's a new one to me, but that goes back to number one, because as women, we take on a lot. And nobody sees the tears that we shed unless we're by ourselves, okay? Because I know for myself, I'll absorb, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. And then there's sometimes where you just get tired. And then you're just like, I just can't do it anymore. But again, I've learned from my job to allow myself to feel. Sometimes I have to take a moment. And you know what my therapy is? Our puppy Coco. We have a Yorkie, her name is Coco Chanel. And if ever, I've learned from Coco unconditional love. Regardless of what she may do, I may have to tap her every now and then, but what does she do every time I come back to her? She's constantly on her back feet, like, hey, mama, I'm here, I'm here. So if you have a pet, that's a good way for you to reflect on your feelings, spend some time. Pets have a way of bringing out that emotional love in you anyway. But again, I haven't heard of the toxic positivity. But again, I can relate to everything that you're saying, but I'm a good one for allowing myself to feel. I'd like to give an example. 2 Christmases ago, I wasn't feeling it. I was not feeling it. And I told my husband, we're not putting up any trees. We're not putting up any lights. We're not doing anything, was because I don't feel it. And he allowed me to do that because I had to allow myself to feel. I wasn't putting on airs and celebrating because everybody else was doing it. I had to allow myself to feel and work through it as best I could. But I like that.
Suzanne, I think this next person's statement is going to bring you to tears because I just got to tears reading it. So Angela Meyer, do you feel comfortable opening your microphone and saying what you just put in chat on with the group and sharing that with Suzanne?
Please do.
Okay, Angela, if you don't want to say it, I'll just pass it along to Suzanne. She said she really needed this today. Her husband was in the ICU for 2 weeks. He found out that he has 4 tumors on his lungs, 2 on each, and they're waiting the results. She feels like she has the weight of the world on her shoulders, and she can't remember the last time she took time for her. So, you know, everything happens for a reason. We're glad that Suzanne was able to bring this for you today, but always know that, you know, there's people that you can reach out to. One of the other, again, Jen Marcus, whose mic wasn't working earlier, wanted you to explain a little bit about EAP. She works for a very small company that doesn't even have an HR department. And so, you know, those of us who come from larger companies, we're familiar with it. It's part of our health insurance. But Suzanne, if you can just explain a little bit about what EAP is and how businesses access that for their employees.
Okay, EAP stands for the Employee Assistance Program, and it's a benefit that's offered usually through an employer. What it does is it allows you opportunities to talk to a clinician or a counselor. Now, I'm just going to use this one as an example. Optima and our EAP, a person can have anywhere from 3 to 5 visits per issue or concern, up to 3 to 5 visits, where they're allowed to go and talk to a counselor about specific topics. After their 3 or 5 visits, you know, because it is for short-term type counseling, then they will be referred over to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. But not that I'm being biased or anything, but the EAP program works. A lot of employers like to offer the EAP program because it's an investment for them to try to get the employee back on track. A lot of times employees come in, they have tardiness, absenteeism, presenteeism, all kinds of things, because there are things that we, in our presentations, that we ask the employers to look out for. And if you see these things, you know, you can easily say, hey, look, you may want to go and talk to EAP. Services are confidential. The employee doesn't have to worry about, you know, us exposing their information. And again, usually it's a benefit that's offered through the employer.
Kim says to all panelists, being vulnerable with the right people, those you can trust, really helps. And I think that that's, yes, Suzanne, something that we've all really learned during COVID, that you need the right people in your bubble, and you know, you need the ones who are going to cheer with you with the victories and cry with you over the, you know, and make you laugh through the hard times. So, you know, I think that that's a strong message that you've been relaying to all of us. If you could just talk a little bit more on connecting with the right people and knowing who you can trust.
Right. Everybody has something of interest, okay? And I always encourage people, like my husband is a photographer. I tell him, you know, he takes phenomenal pictures. And I tell him, Bradley, you need to surround yourself with other photographers because they have that photographer lingo, the f-stop 322 and the lens, the 400. They have all of that information that they have a commonality to share. Everybody, you need to surround yourself with people of like kind because that's how you grow. And you can grow from anyone. But again, if you find a group of people that have the same interests and you all can talk the same dialogue, that's always a plus, always a plus. You know, again, even people, church groups, you know, if there's an organization of women that had breast cancer, surround yourself with people that have been through those things because you all inspire each other. Don't laugh, but I seem to attract women that are bald, okay? Because again, some may be going through alopecia. Fortunately, mine is by choice, but women that are going through breast cancer or something like that, they like the vote of confidence. I encourage them, don't wear the wig, just be yourself. You're beautiful as you are. And you know, one thing that I always tell Priscilla people is that be your brother's keeper, please. If you know somebody is going through something, again, show them love, help them out. Don't try to be a clinician, but try to help them to get into a support group, whether it be at church or professional or some type of an EAP. Again, be your brother's keeper. Encourage people, encourage people, encourage people. I know for myself, I've come a long way, and I try to bring people with me. On my Facebook page, all I post are positive, inspirational things every day. If it's not a picture of my puppy or my husband and I. But again, just those subliminal messages that I put out there every day, I've gotten quite a following of people that just say, let me see what Suzanne has to say today. And you best believe it's going to be something positive, because I want to encourage people. I like to empower people. And on the flip side, I like to be empowered too.
And that leads right into Jacqueline Evans' question. Anne, can you open Jacqueline Evans' mic, please?
I don't think Jacqueline wants to open her mic, Priscilla, so if you could ask the question.
Sure. So Jacqueline wants to know, how do you handle it when people reject your positivity or encouragement?
It happens. I smile and keep going. I'm not going to let anyone else steal my thunder or take my joy. You know, if you have something against me, that's okay. That's your prerogative. Those are your feelings, and you're allowing yourself to feel that way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way that I'm going to treat you. I mean, I've had people to say things that aren't very nice to me, but I still, and it's just in my nature to show them love. I'm still going to speak to you. I'm still going to engage in a little bit of conversation with you. But again, it's not like I'm going to stand there and try to figure out, why don't you like me? You know, what did I do? No, it's, you know, you're entitled to your feelings, but I'm entitled to mine too. And always remember, don't let other people steal your joy. As I used to say, don't give somebody the remote where they have control over you and how you respond and how you react. You keep the remote, you control you. You are responsible for you. And that goes back to creating emotional boundaries. It would have to be something far, far-fetched for somebody to really, really get next to me. Back in the day, it wouldn't have been.
You never know, obviously, what's going on in someone else's life and their background. So you may be a trigger for someone without even knowing it. I had a boss, he was our boss for about 6 months. He didn't last long. And he had these over-the-top reactions to me and one other woman on the team. And finally, someone from the market he just came from told us that we looked just like the fiance that just dumped him. So he was channeling all his anger at his fiance that dumped him, at me and another woman, just because we looked like her. So, and there's nothing you can do about that. There's nothing you can do. You just walk away and grin and bear it. One of the attendees has an anonymous question. This might be a little bit too clinical, but I'll throw it out there just so that she knows we threw it out there. She's talking about a divorce situation with a child involved and an ex-spouse who is negative and mean and confrontational, but obviously, you know, there's got to be constant contact and trying to raise the kids in the pleasant calmness.
Yeah,
Any
that would be that's clinical.
It's clinical. Okay, so we'll pass on that one. That's a little heavy, but you know, a lot of these things, you know, you can use in any situation. And if it's a coworker, if it's an ex-spouse, if it is, you know, like my former crazy boss that had an ex-fiance, you know, you got to unload the baggage, unload it, and leave it, and then, you know, just keep coming at it with the positivity. Suzanne, we've gotten tons of thank yous on here. Thank you for sharing your story. And I'm just checking to make sure. I think we got to everyone's questions. We will be posting the recording of this when we post our article on the Hampton Roads Chamber website. So if you missed something, you can certainly get to that. Oh, and here's one more. What are some resources that can be used to cultivate emotional intelligence?
How to recognize and respect emotions. To be honest with you, I really don't know right now. Other than looking at yourself. Again, cultivating emotional intelligence goes back to recognizing what upsets you, how you respect others, how you manage your own emotions. But, if you have an EAP program, I would ask that you call and talk to a counselor about it so that they could give you a clinical reasoning behind it. But just for me, it's just knowing how to manage your emotions. And Priscilla, you said something that was key a few minutes ago. You really don't know what people are going through. You really don't. And so you can see somebody, I tell people all the time, my mouth can tell you anything. I can throw words out there like my mother used to tell me. She'd say, Suzanne, don't get persnickety with me. And I would cry because I didn't know what persnickety meant. But the thing is that your mouth, a person's mouth can tell you anything, but watch the emotions. Watch how they react. And so, that will help you also to help to cultivate emotional intelligence, because the next time you run into that person, regardless of what they say, their actions, sometimes the actions speak louder than words. So again, but I would encourage you for that question to get in contact with the EAP and talk to, a clinician about it. And maybe they may have some resources.
And sometimes the simple, just saying to someone who's going off on a rant on something, if you just say to them, you okay?
Yeah.
So that they realize, okay, maybe that was inappropriate. You know what? I'm not okay. And then suggesting getting a little help, because we are all in this together and we will all get through this together. And again, cultivating grace and gratitude and, I don't know, Suzanne, if you want to just run around the wheel once more fast to just reiterate to everyone these 12 key messages that are so important right now.
Yes, ma'am. 1, allow yourself to feel. Whatever you're feeling, let it out. Please don't suppress it, because suppression causes heart attacks, strokes, it causes depression, and a multitude of other health conditions. Pay attention to physical sensations. If your body hurts for any reason, if you don't feel good, get it checked regardless of what it is. Do you know a headache could mean an aneurysm? A headache could be an indicator, maybe your head hurts, but it's throwing itself somewhere else in your body. Get yourself checked. Go for your annual exams regularly. Reflect on your feelings. Journal. Reflect back on things that have been good in your life, because I guarantee you, if you were to do the positives and the negatives, the positives would outweigh the negatives. Reflect on it and write those things down. Express yourself creatively. Learn a way to process your emotions. Fishing, dancing, singing, making flowers, doing whatever you want to do, but make sure that you take time to do that. Limit your exposure to negative messages. Stay away from negativity if you can. It's not hard to do, but it's also not easy to do either, because every day you don't know what you're going to run into. The next one, replace negative messages with positive ones. I'm sure we all know somebody who's a negative thinker all the time. Everything that comes out of their mouth is something negative. Don't you fall into that, because what happens is you start to spiral down. At some point, you have to think about positive things every now and then. And so start replacing those positive ones over the negative ones. You'll feel a lot better. Engage in activities. We've talked about hobbies. Have something to do that you enjoy, that brings joy to you. Create emotional boundaries. Have that bubble around you. Okay, nobody can touch you. Nobody can hurt you. And the thing is that when you exude confidence, that's a way of creating an emotional boundary. It's more so saying, when I walk into the room, okay, I'm here. I don't have to open my mouth. I'm here. I'm confident, but keep your distance if you're coming to me with negativity. Again, emotional boundaries are crucial. Begin a gratitude practice. Be grateful for everything you have and even those that you don't have. And when you do get those things that you've asked for or prayed for, be thankful. Just be thankful. Resolve emotional wounds, the old stuff from the past. Let it go. Let it go, because you know what? You are the one that's holding on to it. You're the one that's walking around feeling the weight and pressure of the world from something that happened 10 years ago. And to be honest with you, you may not even remember what it was. So resolve emotional wounds, cultivate emotional intelligence, recognize and realize what the triggers are for you, and learn to manage your emotions. Don't hop off at every situation. Sometimes you have to take that whoo-saw, think about the situation that's going on before you react. And then, like one thing my mother used to tell me all the time, it's not about what you say, it's the delivery of it. You know, I could tell you anything, but it depends on how I deliver it to you and how you receive it. And then again, if you have an EAP, we ask that you use it. The services are out there for you. A lot of times the first couple of visits they have no copay, no deductible, no co-insurance. If you need to go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, professional counseling, or a support group, put the pride aside. Go and get the help that you need and just move forward. And also, last but not least, I keep saying it, be your brother's keeper. Look out for those around you, because again, someone may be acting in a way that they think is normal, but you see otherwise. My mom used to say, we don't see ourselves as others see us. So help your brother, pull them up, help them to get the help that they need by an EAP, a professional counseling, or support group.
Suzanne, thank you. And I love you. I think you are just one of the most wonderful people God created. So I think Brian Stevens is going to pop on for a minute and wrap up a little bit, and then I'll come back and tell you all about a couple programs that we have set up. Brian?
Yes, thank you so much, Suzanne. You know, I have a saying, and that saying is that success leaves clues. And whether it's personal success or professional success, success leaves clues. And you've certainly given us 12 clues to personal and professional success today. And we thank you so much. I agree with Priscilla. You're an amazing person, and we love you. And we thank you so much for your support, not just of the Hampton Roads Chamber, but for the entire Hampton Roads region. Thank you so much for your leadership and your energy and being a role model for us all. I also want to thank all of our sponsors, especially Cox and JD. Good seeing you again. Thank you so much for all that you and Cox Communications does for our region. And again, this is the first in a series of programs that Priscilla's putting together. And so with that, Priscilla, I'll turn it back over to you to talk a little bit about the rest of the series.
Thank you, Brian. We have 2 more virtual Power of Women events scheduled, and then we are, fingers crossed, going to do a live event in the fall. So from my mouth to God's ears, right? We're going to have a live event in the fall. Our next 2 virtual on April 27th, more of the clinical side of mental health awareness with author Heather Marie Van Cleve. And then on June 16th, Shanna's actually been listening to the call today and putting some comments in. Shanna Kabatsnik of Fab Women will discuss being a fearless woman, an authentic leader, and bold in business. So those are all at 10 o'clock in the morning. The virtual component is free to participate. You just need to sign up, and we'll send you the link, and we'll keep this discussion going. JD, thank you, and thank NECA for all that you do for the Chamber and for the community. Suzanne, I know that you have touched a lot of hearts today, and you've helped a lot of people, and thank you for sharing your gifts with us.
You're welcome. You're more than welcome.
All right, this concludes our event. Thank you all for joining us, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Here's my heart.